In the quiet cul-de-sac of Maple Grove Estates, peace was woven into the fabric of everyday life. Children reveled in the freedom of suburbia, their laughter mingling with the soft rustle of leaves in the gentle breeze. Neighbors exchanged friendly nods and brief conversations, their lives a tapestry of small, shared courtesies. Amidst this idyll lurked Karen, the self-appointed czar of the Homeowners Association, wielding her clipboard with the fervor of a crusader. My home stood at the edge of this ordered chaos, a modest dwelling adorned with the warmth of understated charm. The porch light, a beacon in the night, cast a soft glow that welcomed guests and guarded against the shadows. It was as much a part of my home as the creaky floorboards and the well-loved armchair by the window. That light had never solicited complaint until Karen deemed it a transgression against the aesthetic code of Maple Grove. The notice fluttered in the mailbox one Tuesday morning, sharp angles of paper that seemed to pierce the tranquility of my day. Violation, it proclaimed with bureaucratic zeal, citing the porch light's wattage as an affront to community standards. I imagined Karen's satisfaction as she penned her report, relishing the power to disrupt lives with the stroke of a pen. I took a breath, letting the absurdity of it wash over me like a fleeting rainstorm. Petty grievances were Karen's currency, her way of asserting dominance over our peaceful enclave. My instinct was to resist, to mount a defense against this petty tyranny. Instead, I chose a different path. Sometimes, peace requires a gentle defiance. I replaced the light with one that complied with the bylaws, its glow meeker, but still steadfast. My response was not capitulation, but a quiet refusal to let Karen's pettiness disturb my calm. The porch light continued its vigil, a silent witness to the ebb and flow of life on our street. Days passed, the sun tracing lazy arcs in the sky, marking time with its inevitable march. It was during these moments, sitting on the porch with my thoughts as company, that I pondered the nature of power. True power, I mused, was not in enforcement, but in resilience. It was in choosing how to respond, not in being dictated by someone else's pettiness. In the evenings, I observed the neighborhood settling into its nightly rhythm. Houses blinked into darkness one by one, surrendering to the embrace of sleep. My porch light, dimmed but undeterred, cast its glow against the night. It was then, in those meditative hours, that an idea began to form, one that reflected the irony of Karen's petty empire and her obsession with control. The thought of a light shining solely on Karen's house, a beacon of irony illuminating her relentless watch, amused me. It was the kind of poetic justice that required no malice, only creativity. As the curtain fell on Act 1, the seeds of a plan took root, waiting patiently for the right moment to blossom. I would let it unfold in its own time, like a flower unfurling in the spring, imperceptibly at first, but with an inevitability that was as certain as the dawn. The porch light war had been ignited, flickering like a candle in the dark corners of our quaint neighborhood. My new beacon, gleaming with relentless precision, cast its calculating glance toward Karen's abode. It was as if I'd gifted my house a sentinel, one that stood unfaltering under the night's heavy shroud, its mission clear and unyielding. Karen, however, was not one to bow silently. She retaliated with the precision of a chess player selecting her next move. Her tactics were as predictable as they were ridiculous, yet there was a certain artistry to her audacity. The first salvo arrived as a notice stapled to my mailbox, a list of infractions penned with the rigidity of someone who believed in order as a form of personal expression. The list read like a parody of suburban life. Grass blades exceeding regulation height, trash bins positioned a centimeter astray, and a bird feeder accused of being too attractive to local wildlife. Each item was a bullet in Karen's petty arsenal, fired with the fervor of a righteous soldier. Inside, I let the notice slip from my fingers, its accusations fluttering to the floor like autumn leaves. I welcomed the absurdity, a symphony of bureaucratic nonsense orchestrated by her need for control. Her rules were as binding and arbitrary as invisible chains, designed to tether us all to her vision of an orderly utopia. Neighborhood whispers followed, slithering through hedges and around freshly painted picket fences. She was a poet of gossip, her words woven into the tapestry of community lore. They carried her truth, a narrative woven with care and malice, until it clung to me like a shadow. They spoke of my defiance, of lights made to mock and confront. They painted me with a brush dipped in the ink of rebellion. But I was not alone in my isolation. Every morning, as I sipped my coffee, I watched others fall into her sights. The Johnsons' holiday lights, a burst of color and whimsy, now labeled as unseasonable. The Millers' patio, a sanctuary for laughter and friends, deemed an unauthorized structure. We were all actors in her one-woman show, performers in a drama scripted by her unstinting pen. Karen's house, now perpetually illuminated by my singular light, blinked like a lighthouse besieged by a sea of darkness. It stood as a testament to her misjudgment, a beacon of my quiet defiance. The illumination was irony incarnate, a spotlight on her empire of rules and whispers, casting long shadows that curled around her like a lover's embrace. In the depth of night, I would stand by my window, the glass cool beneath my fingertips. The scene outside was a tableau of suburban warfare, where the night guard stood vigil, and Karen's house basked under the relentless glow. It was a reminder that sometimes the quietest actions speak the loudest truths. The light, unwavering and true, offered a clarity that no decree or gossip could dim. Beneath the surface, a tension simmered, a quiet storm gathering force. Karen's next move was inevitable, as certain as the dawn. Yet, as I watched the interplay of light and shadow dance across her facade, a calm settled within me. The battle lines were drawn, but this was my home, my sanctuary. And within these walls I held a power she could never strip away. The sun slipped beneath the horizon like a secret being kept, and with its departure the neighborhood was plunged into a quiet, uncertain dusk. My new porch light, an unassuming fixture during the day, now came to life with a soft, almost conspiratorial hum. It was a beacon of defiance, its narrow beam a spotlight on the theater of petty grievances that had unfolded on this suburban stage. Karen's house stood directly across the street, a monument to her precise, albeit oppressive adherence to community rules. The irony was not lost on me as the light cut through the darkness, illuminating her perfectly manicured lawn with an unwavering intensity. It was as if the universe had painted a line between us, one that shimmered each evening with the persistence of a heartbeat. I watched from behind the gauzy sanctuary of my kitchen curtains as shadows painted themselves onto her garage door, stretching and contracting like dancers in a haunting ballet. The other houses remained shrouded in a cozy semi-darkness, their inhabitants blissfully unaware of the silent battle being waged. But not for long. The first sign of curiosity came from the Johnsons next door. I noticed their heads, silhouetted in the warm glow of their living room, turned towards Karen's house with a mixture of bemusement and intrigue. It was a subtle crack in the veneer of neighborhood indifference, a small ripple beginning to spread across a pond of complacency. As the days passed, more neighbors joined the audience. They did not speak of it openly, but their glances, furtive, questioning, spoke louder than any words. It was as if the light had cast a spell, drawing eyes and quiet murmurs from behind drawn blinds. Even the children, usually absorbed in their twilight games, paused to examine the unexpected glow with wide, curious eyes. Karen, of course, noticed immediately. Her blinds snapped shut with the precision of a well-rehearsed defense, but the fortress of fabric could not hold back the flood of light that continued to pour into her home. Her silhouette would occasionally flit past a window, a shadow, play of irritation and resolve. I imagined her fuming, perhaps drafting new complaints in the strict language of HOA regulations, her pen an instrument of indignation. But there was also the possibility, just a whisper, that she understood the message, the silent protest shining onto her doorstep. The neighborhood began to shift. Conversations lingered longer at the mailboxes, a shared sense of unspoken camaraderie blooming among us. The light had become a catalyst, an unplanned gathering point for those who had felt the sting of Karen's rulebook. We were united, if only in our shared amusement and rebellion. One evening, as I adjusted the light to a fraction brighter, a neighbor approached me. He stood on the sidewalk, hands tucked in his pockets, and nodded towards the spotlight. "Bold move," was all he said, his voice carrying the weight of unspoken understanding. I nodded, a smile playing at the corners of my lips. It was enough. We were bound by the shared glow of that light, an alliance forged in the quiet resistance to a singular tyranny. The tension remained a thin thread, stretched taut between Karen and the rest of us. Yet, in that tension, there was also a taut sense of community, a binding tether that was both fragile and unbreakable. As I turned back to my house, the light continued its vigil, a silent guardian in the night, watching over our peculiar suburban skirmish. The night settled over the neighborhood like a blanket, the kind that used to smother but now felt more like a gentle embrace. The air was crisp, and the stars twinkled with a clarity that seemed almost conspiratorial. My porch light, the sparkling beacon of my little rebellion, hummed softly, casting its narrow, focused beam across the street. It illuminated Karen's house with a theatrical glow that could only be described as poetic justice. I watched from my window, sipping tea, savoring that perfect blend of warmth and irony. The light was an art installation, a tribute to our ongoing saga. Gone were the nights when her petty grievances thrived unchecked. Now, under the spotlight, Karen seemed smaller, her shadow long and thin against the driveway, like a worn-out pencil sketch. The neighbors had started to notice the change. Not just the literal illumination, but the shift in power dynamics. The whispers that once carried tales of discontent were now laden with a different timbre. Respect, perhaps, or relief. Karen had lost her edge. The razor-sharp tongue, now dulled by her own overexposure. This light was not merely a device, but a mirror, reflecting her own absurdities back at her. Tonight, she stood at her window, silhouette stark against the dim glow of her living room. I wondered what she saw as she peered out. Did she glimpse the same stories woven into the beams of light? Or was she still caught in the tangled web of her own making, unable to see beyond? Her face, usually a portrait of indignation, seemed softer now, as if the harsh light had melted some of her resolve. The community, too, had started to thaw. Neighbors who once avoided eye contact began to nod in passing. Little waves of acknowledgement surfaced in the shared spaces, the park, the mailbox, the sidewalks that connected our lives. Our street, once a battleground, was becoming a tapestry of quiet alliances. Karen's hold on the HOA had weakened. Her decrees, once delivered with military precision, now sounded like distant echoes. The light had shifted the locus of control, not just in brightness, but in intent. My porch was not just a stage, but a silent orator of change. In the stillness, I felt a strange kinship with the night, a shared understanding of cycles and seasons. Karen might have been the storm, but storms pass, leaving behind a canvas cleansed and ready for new stories. I imagined a future meeting where her complaints would hold less sway, her voice less commanding. The light had done more than shine. It had revealed. My intention was never to banish, only balance. Karen, in her way, had brought us together, her reign a catalyst for unity. The streetlight flickered, a subtle reminder that even the brightest lights need tending. I drew the curtains, allowing the night its privacy once more. Tomorrow would dawn, and with it, another chapter. Karen would still be there, across the street, a part of the landscape. But her role was diminished now, like a once-starring character relegated to the ensemble. And in that ensemble, we found our harmony. Our community, restored, had learned to dance in the light and the darkness together.